Thanks, Steve, for joining us again for the HTMA View. We are all here to talk about a topic today that I think is going to blow your mind, maybe just a little bit. And so one of the things that, and I'll kind of relate it to myself. So get into my 50s, going through that kind of menopause stage. And what's the first thing that everybody says? You need to take calcium for strong bones and teeth, right? We're in that era now it's all calcium based. And I know for myself, based on my HTMA test, that I don't necessarily need calcium. I need the other cofactors to shuttle it where it's going to go. So today we're going to talk about something called calcium shell and really talk about some of the things behind it. Amber, tell us what a calcium shell actually represents.
High tissue on a HTMA test, and it indicates calcium that is in the soft tissue and not where it should be, bones and teeth.
Absolutely. So who else wants to share on calcium shell? Who's been through a calcium shell?
Over and over.
Ryan, you're standing alone.
I am alone. I'm the token non-calcium shell person.
Right? Oh my goodness.
Well, my very first, I'm sorry, Brian.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, I think the highest my calcium's ever been is like 53.
Okay,
Gosh,
yeah, so
that's
that's pretty
beautiful.
good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Sheila, what about you?
Yeah, my very first hair test 3 years ago, I was presented with what's called a calcium shell. At the time, I didn't know what that was. And it actually, the psychological symptoms that sometimes people experience with calcium shell, I experienced. And I've also experienced some of the emotional detox of it as I've worked through my calcium shell, which I'm getting into. But yeah, it was quite, it made me stop and say, why has this happened? I wasn't supplementing with calcium, although that was a recommendation. And as we get into our 50s and I'm in menopause and like, 1,200 milligrams of calcium. And, I think I did dabble in a little bit because I took a lot of supplements. But then something intuitively told me not to do that. And thankfully I didn't. I might have had a much higher calcium shell. But it was interesting to learn about the body's innate ability to kind of numb us from traumatic experiences. And the funny thing is, I'm thinking, I'm not stressed. I don't know oh yeah, the last 10 years I had a divorce, a household, new business. But it kind of actually like made me take a look at what was happening, because sometimes we push, especially, and not to leave you out, Ryan, but especially women in sometimes cases where we just do, go, 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 and we're not really paying attention to symptoms.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been I was on the road to osteoporosis and arthritis. If I continued on the path I was on, I'm very thankful.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Can I speak to when you said that you were breaking it and you had some emotions and retracing and going through that? I experienced that too. My first test, also a calcium shell, and I was breaking it, and it was relatively easy given the right cofactors, which is so wonderful. Considering some minerals can be a little bit tougher, especially copper, but the calcium, give it what it needs and work on your nervous system, and usually you'll see some change. But I was going through this and sleeping terribly and having wild, vivid dreams, and I was having a lot of like joint pain and bone pain, and coming from a Lyme background, I thought, oh no.
Yeah.
So I reached out to my mentor, and she was like, no, you're reliving some old traumas, and you're moving through those emotions that are trapped. So it was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a wild ride for people too. The other thing that happens, and you talk about vivid dreams, one of the things that happens to one of my clients overseas was like dreaming about, like having nightmares about previous car accident. So she had had a severe car accident about a decade before, and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally sleeping and that's all I'm dreaming about is this car accident. So it was just like her kind of going back in time and kind of going through those emotions.
It's kind of like that buffer, right? It's like the things that you don't want to think about or deal with, and the stress is there. So the calcium's like, don't worry, I got you. And you don't have to think about this right now. And then once that starts to go where it's supposed to go, you're basically left with these things to deal with and to think about and to process. And yeah, I actually had a different, like I love how you said, Sheila, emotional detox. I had a very, very, what I think was calcium related, was very physical. So my first test, my calcium was high, on the higher end, maybe in the high 70s or something. And then on my second test, it shot up into the hundreds. And soon after that, I'll never forget, I come into work and I told Lisa about this. I had pain in my thighs, and it was different than pain that I was used to from like running or lifting weights. Like I'm like, this is different. And like I tried stretching, right? Like I tried all my normal things and I'm like, this is not normal. And I ended up actually going on holidays for a week, and the pain got, I wouldn't even have been able to come to work. Like the pain got so intense in my legs. It was kind of there all day, but at night, for some reason, it would like ramp up, and I could not sleep because I was in so much pain. I tried to hold off as long as I could, like medicating myself, but I finally gave in. And like one night I'll never forget, it was the peak of pain. I was in bed, just like I just kind of let go of like trying to be tough and trying to be like, no, I'm fine. And I just started crying because I was like, it was maybe night 3 or 4 of having pain. And so I'm just laying there like crying, like I just like, is this my life now? I didn't know how long this was gonna last. Like I'm just gonna be up all night for the rest of my life in pain. And I was like, that's it. I'm gonna go get some Advil. Like I'm not living this life. I need to do something. So I got out of bed and I'm like crying and I'm stumbling in the dark. And I had to stop, hold on to the wall. Like I couldn't even walk. And I ended up, I don't know if I don't really know what happened, but the next thing I know, I had like fallen into a box because we were moving. So I'm like in a cardboard box, and I had like knocked my husband at the time, like I had knocked over his water and like splashed him in the face. He wakes up, I'm in a cardboard box crying, and he's like, what is happening? I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
I'm in so much pain. So anyways, I got back from my holiday, which was a really fun week. And Lisa's like, how was your week off? How was your holiday? I'm like, well, let me tell you, I was crying in a box. I was in so much pain, and it just went away. Like it last, I think I had a few more days. Like that was the peak of it when I was crying in that cardboard box, and it just kind of went away and it never returned again.
Yep.
And I mean, I was terrified that this was going to be my life, but it's like something was happening in my body, and we were like, oh my gosh, talking about minerals and like what is happening. And we ended up discussing like calcium moving out of the tissues, and it was wild. Like I wish this experience on nobody. But yeah, and then my calcium, I believe, shot up even higher on the next test, and then it finally started coming down. So
Yep. I think it was we theorized that it was a dump movement pattern.
Wow.
And it was coming from the I imagine it was coming from either the fascia or the musculature. And I found it interesting because too, right about, I want to say after that was when Rachel did, so everybody knows Rachel L. Newman, right? Obviously, been doing HTMA for decades and decades and does a lot of spiritual and emotional work. And there was a story that she shared about someone who had been sexually abused, and she was doing kind of manual manipulation and spiritual work with her, and had that same type of release, right? Because of the calcification that was in the area of where she actually got abused. She shared that last year at the summit, which was a super powerful story, but quite similar with regards to that feeling and the pain and things like that to be able to let go of.
Yeah. And it's funny because that was the worst night. And that was the night that it's like, I kept trying to be like, no, I'm fine. I can handle this. I can, and then it wasn't until I was like, I'm not okay. I was like, I'm in pain. I started crying, and it's like, yeah, it's wild how that worked.
I think like the talking about some of the benefits of realizing though that you have a calcium shell. So maybe somebody's listening going like, I don't really want to know, or I don't want to go through that. But but to find that out when our calcium's displaced, and then to work through breaking that shell and releasing those emotions that we've been pushing down, or and then again having those physical symptoms, but what are we preventing? You know?
I when I did my first HTMA, my calcium was at 160 something. And on a retest, it shot up to 200 and something. Then on the next retest, it shot up to over 400. Then it stayed at 400. And literally just the last test, it came down for the first time in ages. And like mine, I'm pretty sure is because of trauma. And after I lost my dad, I hadn't done any work on on the trauma that was surrounding that, because there was quite a lot. And it was only after doing that work that my calcium shell started to shift. I didn't have the same kind of emotional release, I don't think, or if I did, I just not very in tune with it. I didn't realize. Maybe that's a possibility. But so I think, as to Sheila's point, not everybody has that. And, bringing a calcium shell or breaking calcium shell doesn't always feel like a huge emotional release for everybody, because I don't think I had that. But one thing I do know is that when it was higher, my body was very stiff. I am very stiff anyway, and I'm waiting for that calcium to come down to below 100 and see whether my very stiff body that's always been pretty stiff suddenly is looser. I live in hope. But yeah, it's not all, I think for everybody it's a different experience. And the calcium is there as a buffer to protect you from your emotions, which is obviously why mine kept on going up and up and up. Even though I was doing mineral balancing and doing all the things, it still kept on going up because there was a lot there.
It was probably protecting you from your high copper too, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Dulling that reaction down.
Yeah.
Well, and we can't deny the physiological response, right? We're talking about trauma, and trauma is a stressor, right?
Yeah.
And so Ryan, walk us through the stress reaction pattern, because that's a really important part of what happens with regards to calcium then being able to kind of increase in the soft tissues and end up in the wrong places.
Yeah, so calciums, start rising in the tissues as one way too, is it because it's a calming mineral to help, slow us down, so that calcium is going to continue to raise. And we see too, well, with that pattern, with the stress and stuff like that, we talk about a sympathetic dominant person who's going to have very low potassium. They're going to have a high calcium to phosphorus ratio with high calcium. And so their body is screaming at them to slow down, but their mind is saying, we're going to push through and keep going. So yeah, having that buffer there to slow us down is beneficial. Like just like Amber had mentioned earlier, like if you're dealing with copper, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of calcium there to buffer that a little bit as well. Anybody else want to share on that, the stress response with the calcium as well?
I'll jump in. So we know when we're under stress, we start blowing through potassium, we start blowing through sodium, and then You know, these are our body's main solvents that really help to get magnesium as well as calcium into solution so that they can be utilized. But we're also blowing through magnesium, but so there's kind of twofold. So magnesium is being lost from the cell and it's also not able to get into a solvent. So this magnesium is like the bouncer. It's like the gatekeeper of this calcium channel. And calcium is just kind of like, you know, it's this rogue mineral and it needs to stay put. And magnesium really plays a big role in calcium staying put where it belongs. And so if we're deficient in magnesium because we're under massive stress, because now we've lost all of these cofactors that help us utilize or you know, support the stress response. So now we're depleted. Magnesium is no longer manning the gate and calcium now goes rogue. And by rogue, I just mean it's now moving about the cabin. It's moving about the body all over. It belongs in a couple places. We know it belongs in the bones, it belongs in the teeth. And when it goes, when it's allowed to, because, you know, magnesium has stepped out because it's been overutilized and now we're deficient, calcium starts to build up in the tissue. So then we have tissue calcification, and we're seeing that as a you know, as a root cause of high blood pressure. That I don't know. Are we thinking about that conventionally? I don't know. I think functionally, so I don't really know. But we know that our arteries can get hardened and cause a blood pressure issue. But we also know that it's going to sort of calcify our nervous system. And myself, you know, I'm in a family where, you know, we've got three personalities in with the women. We've got my cousin who, you know, a stressor comes along and she's going to fight about it. My sister's going to laugh about it. And Tara, she's going to cry about it. And then there came a season where Tara couldn't cry. Okay. There was no crying. And I'm like, that's so sad, but I don't really care. And then come to find out, you know, fast forward a little bit, you know, and a lot of joint pain later, which I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's true what they're saying. You reach 40 and the wheels fall off because, you know, I was always running, I was doing all of these things, and then out of nowhere, I run and I want to die because my ankles feel like they're going to dislodge from my body. And I just was like, old just is an awful thing. You know, I can't believe this is happening to me. I've done so much to prevent it. But anyway, so that's why that's happening in the background. I run my HTMA and realize, oh, that's why I care. The girl that cares about everything way too much all of a sudden cares about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got this massive calcium shell, and dun, 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 that's where my joint pain was coming from. This calcium is a hard mineral. It's a sharp mineral, and it's not in my bones and it's not in my teeth. It's in, you know, my joints and my muscles. And I'm frozen. Am I frozen to everybody? Okay. And I'm telling you guys, it was like my ankles were just jamming down on spikes, and I would just I would just press through it because I'm like, I need the exercise. And then, you know, I discovered the calcium shell. I chipped away at that calcium shell through mineral balancing. It was really, really hard and took a lot of time until I discovered Vicon, because you can do all this mineral balancing with all these different things and 27 different bottles of things. But the protocol always gets a haircut because it's just too much and it's too stressful and it's too costly. And then I was introduced to Vicon, where you can throw it all into one thing and it's super affordable and it's not stressful anymore. And it was great. But then I started chipping away at my calcium shell, and lo and behold, like, I'm not old anymore. My ankles feel awesome, and I can run a marathon if I felt like.
There's still hope for me, Tara.
Oh,
Same,
there is for sure. Because I don't have joint pain. I have less joint pain now than I did when I was in my late 20s.
Totally.
Right? Like, yeah, there's totally always hope. And it's just, again, everybody's journey is a little bit different. And it really does, you know what, Terry, I know you're going through that. It was quite a funny story, but you know, as people age, the one thing that drives me crazy is when somebody says, well, you're just getting older, or I'm just getting older. That my head explodes every time someone says that. I'm like, what are you talking about? And usually they're like 10 years younger than me, the people that are saying it. And I just want to go like, what are you talking about? Right? Like, there's more to it than this, right? And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I always think you're only as old as you feel and you're only as old as you think you are,
That's right.
right? So if your
Absolutely.
mind is saying, I'm just getting old, well, then that's exactly what your body's going to do,
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah, that drives me nuts.
The other
Yeah.
thing with calcium shells, sometimes people experience weight gain, or they like impossible to lose weight.
Oh, yeah, the
Oxidative
insulin.
stress, inflammation,
Yeah.
like calcium is super inflammatory.
Desensitizing the thyroid.
A blood sugar issue with that magnesium and calcium balance. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a really big thing with me when I broke my calcium shell and those two came into balance. Insulin resistance that I had been battling for 15, 20 years, just done, gone, no longer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I can't say enough for how powerful it is to get calcium under wraps, balance it with magnesium, and just it's just biochemistry is wild.
Yeah.
So
Well,
powerful.
the other thing that people don't think about too, and this could be controversial, is everybody's slamming vitamin D and not realizing what vitamin D is
point.
actually doing,
Yeah, yeah.
and not thinking about, okay, my storage form of vitamin D 25OH is low and I can't get it to go up, but your calcium's driving and going up in your tissues because you're magnesium deficient, and that's why you don't have storage D. So that's why balancing minerals is important. And just slamming vitamin D or zinc or whatever to off throw these other things is not going to always be, like you said, Lisa, before, too much of a good thing is not actually a good thing.
And that's the thing that everybody during that period was doing as well, not just the zinc, but yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Single nutrients, right? It's not what we do. It's not the way I think to do it, right? You've got to have the right nutrients based on the person, based on their blueprint at that period of time, right? What they're dealing with, because there's always strategies to help with regards to whatever someone, like what's ailing someone, but it's a matter of bringing that combination together so that they can synergistically work together to get them to their goal and take that journey, right? And everybody's journey is different. So yeah, so I mean, even we've got to talk, we've got future talk about high blood pressure and the calcification, because that's a big one. It's not just all about high sodium, guys, right? Like sea salt is the human battery, right? Sodium's the human battery.
Voltage, right?
Right? And that's not the only thing that drives high blood pressure. So, again, it's always good to know what your body needs and what your body is doing to be able to streamline what you should actually be doing from a nutritional, lifestyle, and even supplemental perspective. So there's lots of rabbit holes we can dive down, but we just wanted to say that's it for today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the HTMA View.